Welcome to St. John's Cathedral, the heart of Jesus in the heart of the city of Los Angeles, and a house of prayer for all people. This podcast is going to reflect about the Feast of Pentecost and what it means for you and for all people who are part of God's creation. 14 billion years ago, I don't know if you can even comprehend that number. I know it's a number that I can't comprehend, but scientists tell us that 14 billion years ago, at a single second in time, a small and incredibly hot, dense mass of matter exploded into a rapidly expanding and cooling amalgam of the elementary elements of the universe. And our greatest scientists ask us to glimpse at the mysteries of this great expanse of all things, because in that one moment was the seed of all creation, that all things that exist now came to being in that one brief moment in time. And at the end of his book, A Brief History of Time, Stephen Hawking asks, what is it that breathes fire into the equations and makes a universe for them to describe? This is the question humankind asks when we observe the universe and its fierce, wild, yet seemingly ordered laws. How is it that a creation that began in such chaos has moved into greater and greater complexity and forms a cohesive unity? We Christians answer that there is a God, the Creator Spirit, the Holy Spirit, who breathes the fire of life into all things, stars, planets, oceans, the largest creatures to the smallest insects, subatomic particles, and you and me and that all same people. Spirit that moved over the chaos of creation is the Spirit that we Christians say came upon those first disciples of Jesus and empowered them for the work of beginning a new creation. A new creation is underway, we believe, built in the midst of what came before. If we look at this world that God made, we see that all things are created to live and work together. We see that all human beings have the breath of the same Creator Spirit who gives life to all of us, and that same Spirit is poured out upon all flesh. The disciples received a vision on that day of Pentecost that all people, no matter who they are or where they came from, are part of what God is up to in the world. No matter who they were, whether they were from Mesopotamia or Rome or Greece, or perhaps in our day here in the city of Los Angeles, we might say, whether you're Anglo or African, Latino or Black American, Belizean, Asian, residents of Los Angeles, residents of West LA or East LA, whoever you are, you and me are part of God's new creation. We have a common mission that we have been plunged into the life-giving waters of baptism and can now be on fire by the same life-giving Spirit, because we each have gifts for ministry that God needs for the church and for the world. We can't do the work of the Spirit without receiving the gifts that every member of Christ's body has to offer. And yet we know that in the world there is a counter movement, a movement that works against the unity of all people and all creation. We know that there's a movement that seeks to separate and draw apart and cause division and enmity between people and God and between people and God's beautiful creation. We know of this separation that Christians call sin. We know it as the result of fear of other persons. We know it as suspicion and hostility of building walls between people rather than bridges. We see it in the violence of war and hatred. We see it when we turn a deaf ear and a blind eye to those who can't seem to get a leg up in the world. And we see it in the sin of racisms of all kinds. We see it in clannishness and clubbishness to which we all fall prey, that excludes other people rather than inviting them in. And today the Creator Spirit comes with wild wind and fierce fire and enables you and me to have the courage to set aside separation. Just like those first fearful disciples locked away from the world, we too can experience the power of Pentecost, because today God is up to something new in the world. God is beginning and continuing that new creation, God's new possibility for all people. And today we say that those things that may divide us in our nation and in our world, even in our own communities, differences of culture, of race or background or gender or sexuality, are the very gifts that we can share to enrich one another in the work of ministry. Today we hold forth that dream of a church where all God's children can be together in one place and move ahead into God's bright future, living as agents and citizens of a new world order that is coming to birth in the midst of the old one. We can pray for a new Pentecost to come. Today we can acknowledge that we are citizens of God's kingdom, or we can choose to live in a locked room in fear and suspicion, as those first disciples did as they waited for the coming of the Holy Spirit. Today we can join God's mission as agents of reconciliation in our church, in our community, in our city, in our workplaces, in our families. Will you and I ask that that same Spirit be given to us, to be let loose in our lives? May our prayer today be simply this: Lord, for a new Pentecost, and let it begin with me.